sattva goodness causes illumination. The mode of sattva goodness illuminates. Thirdly, when one is in the mode of sattva goodness, when the mode of sattva goodness is increased in a person, then light, consciousness, and straightforwardness comes into their senses. Because of this, in every matter, be it a worldly matter or spiritual matter, he can see very clearly because his intellect has become very clear in the mode of sattva, goodness. He can understand this very nicely. The intellect becomes completely effective and efficient. One becomes able to make great decisions. That is why it said in this verse that the mode of sattva, goodness, illuminates. This is because his intellect gets destroyed. Shri Krishna says in the 63rd verse of the 2nd chapter of the Gita that Krodad bhavati samoha, samohat smriti brahmasad buddhi nashat pranashyati. From anger arises bewilderment. From bewilderment, loss of memory. And from loss of memory, the destruction of intelligence. And from the destruction of intelligence, he perishes. When the intellect is in these deformities, be it in the mode of rajas passion or the mode of tamas dullness, then the intellect does not work. When the intellect is in the mode of sattva, goodness, then it's very effective and it's at peace. It is very efficient. God has given us this power of the intellect, but the intellect can see clearly in the mode of sattva goodness, and that is why we go to saints to ask for guidance. That is why we go to great saints to ask them for guidance in life. The reason for this is that I do not know what I'm doing is right or wrong, but the saint is of the mode of sattvic goodness, and I have faith in his intellect, so he should tell me what I should do. This is the secret behind this. It is a mode of sattva, goodness. And even of the person himself, the more and more he goes towards sattvic goodness, then the more that his intellect becomes sensitive. It becomes sensitive. I often say that society has a very popular misunderstanding that when the person becomes dharmic, then he runs away from the world. This is incorrect. All people say that dharmic people have no fun, they do not want to enjoy things, and they want to leave material happiness. O clever person, the fun that the dharmic person has, even ordinary people don't have this much fun. The dharmic person gets a lot of bliss simply because he is steady in the mode of sattva goodness, and when he's steady in the mode of sattva goodness, he can understand the world in the right way. When an ordinary person and a dharmic person look at the same rose, then there's a lot of difference between the two. The ordinary person sees the color of the rose and at the most smells the smell of the rose, and then going further, the ordinary person gets happy upon hearing how much the rose costs. On the other hand, the person of the mode of sattva goodness goes much further than this and looks at its color, its joy, its delicacy, and together with this he thinks that how beautiful must the creator of this beautiful rose, who is my God, be. He also sees this from the flower. That is why each beautiful item and each beautiful object joins him with the Supreme Soul. If I were to say it in simple language, then many letters come into our mailboxes. We get letters from relatives, we get letters from businesses, we get credit card bills, we get junk mail, and sometimes we even get a love letter. The postman comes and drops a whole pile of letters, but we do not look at each and every letter in the same way. A letter is a letter, and all of them have a 50p stamp on them, an envelope, and everything is the same. And sometimes the envelope in which junk mail comes is very nice. They are so attractive and have everything, yet we do not become happy on seeing them. On the other hand, we want to see the letter from our loved one. Just this is the difference. Whatever events arise in this life and in the material world, we are first looking at it as if it's junk mail, even if it's nice and attractive. But the people who are dharmic and who are of the mode of sattva goodness, they see in each and every event in life as a love letter from the Supreme Soul. Their whole imaginations are completely different. A beautiful rose looks like a love letter from the Supreme Soul to them. If they're walking down a road and a gust of wind comes and touches them, then they see this as a love letter from the Supreme Soul. If one is thirsty and someone comes and gives them a glass of water, and then one takes the first sip of water and we just stop it, whereas the sip of water with a sound feels like a love letter from the Supreme Soul to the dharmic and the sattvic good person. Whatever they get, they see it as a love letter from the Supreme Soul, and therefore they have many times more fun than we do. When we sit in a car, and when a dharmic person sits in a car, then there's a difference like the sky and the earth. This is because the dharmic person sees the car as a love letter from the Supreme Soul. The dharmic person thinks that God's grace is with me. This applies to any type of material happiness for that matter. And I'll say the fifth thing, in addition to that, along with the sensitivity of the person increasing as a result of the mode of sattva goodness, the person's sensibility also increases. His power of understanding also increases. And that is why a sattvic good person knows when to stop after enjoying material pleasures, and therefore he can make bliss last for longer. A person with just the modes of rajas, passion, and tamas, dullness, can enjoy material pleasures, but he does not enjoy them sensibly. He just runs after them until he's frustrated. He then gets tired. We say in simple language that he runs after it until he gets tired, and that is why ordinary people at the beginning run after pleasures of the material world and then become frustrated as a result of pleasures. But they do not know where to go after becoming frustrated as a result of material pleasures, and they therefore remain frustrated. The instruments for happiness changes. Trying to become happy by changing the instrument for happiness is like trying to become better by changing beds in a hospital. Even if you change from one bed to another in a hospital, will you get better? It is a matter of changing beds. A person has one car, then he bought a second, then a third, and then another of a classy brand. His television was not working, and therefore you bought another television. He then replaced the sound system with another sound system. This is like changing beds in a hospital. One does not get happiness from this. It's necessary for one to come out of the hospital. That is where happiness is. And a person of the mode of sattva goodness can do this. The reason why he can do this is because he's sensitive, and at the same time he's sensible. He knows when to stop. This is because each and every object that gives us pleasure has a limit. If you keep pressing a bottle of perfume, then it will run out at one moment or the other. What will you do then? This is a limit. Each and every instrument for pleasure has a limit. If a small child sees a bottle of perfume and keeps pressing it, then it will become empty in 10 minutes. On the other hand, an understanding person knows that it's very expensive and that he should only use it when he has to go to very important events. This very thing applies to both matters of society and to matters of dharma. A person living in society destroys each and every instrument of happiness. On the other hand, a person who is sensitive and a person who is sattvic good gets more and more happiness out of them. This is because he is sensible, he is understanding. The mode of sattva goodness causes elimination. Third, Shri Krishna says that the mode of sattva goodness is anamayam, free from sorrows, faults, and deformities. The mode of sattva good is pure, illuminated, and free from sorrows, faults, and deformities. As a result of the mode of rajas, passion, thoughts become unstable, which is a reason for sorrows. There is no mode of rajas, passion, because we are talking about the mode of sattva goodness, that is clean truth. We're talking about the mode of sattva goodness residing in a person, and that is why thoughts have no instability and no turbulence. That is why one is anamayam, free from sorrows, faults, and deformities. Wherever you see balance of prakriti nature, then consider that is the mode of sattva goodness. They will be balanced there. An ordinary person becomes impulsive because of the smallest of things. He keeps reacting at each and everything. This is an imbalanced nature. Either the mode of rajas, passion, or the mode of tamas, dullness, are present there. A person of the mode of sattva goodness is balanced. There was a very big thinker of Europe called Gurdjieff. Anyone heard of him? Gurdjieff? He had people such as Ouspensky as his pupils. He wrote books about what he called the fourth way. He proved divine experiences in life mathematically. Gurdjieff said, "I have not studied and I don't know anything, but I understand one thing, and that is when my father was on his deathbed and I was aged 8, then he told me one thing at the moment, that son, I wish to give you the essence of my life today. It's possible that you may not be able to understand because you're young, but remember this so that whenever you understand it, you begin putting into practice. Remember just one thing. Think for 24 hours before reacting to anyone. Give yourself 24 hours. Sit down calmly for 24 hours. No matter what the person in front of you is doing, do not give a reply for 24 hours. Stay extremely calm. Then after 24 hours, do what you feel is right." Gurdjieff says, "If I became successful in my life, then it's as a result of this one thing. Because I was of the age of 8, I did not understand much. My father told me to put into practice when I grew older, but I put it into practice from the first day. And the moment that I began putting into practice, the more I began to realize the consequences. Many circumstances would arise in my life, with someone would do something or say something or behave with me in a certain way. I would feel that I should finish this off right now, and that it's either a case of them not being there or me not being there. During those moments, I remember the words of my father, that give yourself 24 hours. I would have the wish that right away I would finish this person off, but how could I break the words that my father gave to me at the time of his death? When you think about something for 24 hours, then you feel that it wasn't the fault of the person in front of you, but it was also your fault, and that there is something inside us. And when we realize this also, that we're in this, then immediately the air of anger comes out. You should make efforts to try this. It will give you peace. Wherever there is peace and wherever there is a balanced attitude, then the mode of sattva, goodness, resides there. What does this mode of sattva, goodness, do? Shri Krishna says in this verse that it binds by attachment to happiness and by attachment to knowledge. It binds a person to happiness. It binds with attachment to objects that are possessions and to pleasures experienced by the senses. Where does one get happiness from? They get it from the senses and from objects. The union of these two is equal to happiness, the objects and the sense organs. This is happiness. The mode of sattva, goodness, binds to this. It creates attachment. Shankarananji has said in his commentary that Vishaya Sukha Lampatam Karoti iti Arthaha. He says that objects make people rakish towards pleasures. This is the attachment to happiness. The person keeps thinking that I want even more pleasures, I want even more pleasures, I want even more pleasures. This is what he does. And this binds because the mode of sattva, goodness, does not give liberation from the ego sense. That is why it binds. It gives rise to wishes. No matter if they are for great things, it gives rise to wishes. That is why it binds. What happens when there is a birth of the mode of sattva, goodness, in one's antakaran, in a being? Great saints explain that when we have an expectation for something, or want an object, a person, subject, circumstance, activity, or an event, and this comes, and we attain it, then the thoughts become peaceful and stable as a consequence of this for a little while then there is happiness. Let us say that we're hungry. Therefore turbulence arises that I'm hungry, and then someone comes and puts in front of us food and says, take it and eat it. What you have eaten is this object. This object has come, and you say, wow. We know that this feeling will not last long, but the wow we got for a little while is called happiness. In the same way, if we wanted a certain person and had a wish for that person, then that person comes to us and we say, wow, we get happiness. But what if that thing sticks onto us after we get it? Then we get pain. What is the nature of happiness? When it comes, then it has to go at the same time. Therefore, it either goes or we have a wish that it goes. It is always one of or the other. If it goes by itself, then it's good. But what if it does not go? Then we keep a wish that it should go. First of all, this is the nature of happiness. Gacchati iti jagat. The world is that which is moving. Everything that has come into this world comes, so it has to go. Only we become a little impatient that it should go away quickly, it should go away quickly. It is going to go. Nothing comes to stay. This is pleasure. Now what happens is that the peaceful state of thoughts is happiness, but this happiness arises as a result of the combination of the senses and the sense objects. That is why it goes with time and it's temporary, it's momentary. This is because as soon as this combination breaks and this combination changes, then happiness gets destroyed. People say that the curry was made very nicely today. Why do they feel this? Because certain things came into combination. A certain amount of sweet ingredients are put into it, a certain amount of spicy ingredients were put into it, and a certain type of yogurt was put into it. And out of the yogurts, only yogurt over a certain amount of sourness was put into it. It was a right combination of all of these things. What happened? It was a chance. It was a coincidence where all of these things came into combination. That is why it was made very nicely. When a curry is made after 3 days, then one says that today's yogurt is a little bit too sour. The reason for this is that the combination changed. When the combination changed and the happiness went away, it became momentary. Each and every pleasure is momentary, but what happens is that once one gets a pleasure, then the attraction and the attachment of it stays, that I should get the same pleasure every time, I want the same pleasure every time. How can you give rise to the same combination each and every time? You cannot create the same set of circumstances every time. And that is why what happens is that when one does not get it, then the wish for it is broken a little and it arises all over again. One thinks that, fine, I do not get it this time, but when you make curry next week, then make it like this. This is bondage. The mode of sattva, goodness, binds as a result of attachment to happiness. This is what the mode of sattva, goodness does. When the mode of sattva, goodness comes, then you get an understanding, because if the mode of sattva, goodness were not there, then you would not understand it. The mode of sattva, goodness, gives you the illumination that this can be called good. If you are in the mode of rajas, passion, then the mode of rajas means constant activity. One thinks that they have to go to the office, they have to be somewhere in 10 minutes, and bang their feet on the ground. We're sitting there in order to finish the bowl of curry. Can they really enjoy the curry? No, they cannot. At the moment they just try to finish it quickly, they do not even compliment that it could be made good or made nicely. The wife asks whether it's been made nicely, and he tells her not to speak at this time. Can you enjoy it at that time? If you're in the mode of tamas, dullness, and are in anger, this is the mode of tamas, dullness, then can you enjoy the curry? One extremely angry is extremely red and is eating the curry. He cannot enjoy eating the curry. When you get the happiness, then that the curry is nice and the curry is tasty. It's when you're in the mode of sattva, goodness. Because you're in the mode of sattva, goodness, you get the illumination that this is good, and at the same time you got the illumination, you give rise to another wish that I should get this again. This is why Shri Krishna says in this verse that the mode of sattva, goodness, binds one by attachment to happiness. Only a sattvic good person can experience happiness, and one is close to the good mode of sattva, goodness, during happy moments. A person of the mode of rajas, passion, cannot experience happiness, and a person of the mode of tamas, dullness, cannot even think about happiness. If a person of the mode of rajas maybe has happiness, it's not as if he doesn't get happiness, then he won't be able to experience the happiness. If a person is angry, greedy, or lustful, then they will not even able to think about happiness. The mode of sattva binds by attachment to happiness. Attachment is creating a feeling of wanting the means of happiness again and again, and wanting it constantly. This is attachment, and this is association. One wishes to be associated with happiness again, and one wishes to be associated with happiness constantly. This is association. In the same way, attachment arises from momentary happiness, and bondages arise. This is why the mode of sattva, goodness, binds by attachment to happiness. Then Shri Krishna says that the mode of sattva, goodness, also binds by attachment to knowledge. Shankarananji says that when one has the mode of sattva, goodness, then knowledge becomes manifest, but only in talking and in words. This is how it makes one attached to knowledge. Tarka vimamsha tantra shastra vagena keval artha gnanamaya. This is when one keeps saying that this is the meaning of this, and this happens as a result of that. One has an interest in talking, one has an interest in being called a pandit, a wise person, and in being called a good person by two people. He has no interest in putting it into practice. Shankaranji says further that as a result of wisdom, and the human being should become introverted. But when a person becomes attached to knowledge, and this attachment towards knowledge arises, then this knowledge makes the human being extroverted. Brahma gnan tat sukaro vritti gnan chaturvaya bahir mukham karoti iti arthaha. Then you do not see the consequences in the person's life. He becomes extroverted. This is wrong. This attachment moves happiness that the person gets as a result of his inner introspection through knowledge, and makes the person extroverted. Dr. Radhakrishnan says that the meaning of Gnan referred to here is not the supreme wisdom, but lower intellectual knowledge. It is lower intellectual knowledge. One type of knowledge is experiential knowledge. It is the knowledge of experience. And the second type of knowledge is intellectual knowledge. It is knowledge that has been attained through one's intellect. And there's a very big difference between the two. Knowledge should come through experience. When does one have experiential knowledge? This knowledge begins when a human being stops thinking and sits in a peaceful and silent state. This is when he becomes merely a medium of the Supreme Soul. God keeps giving him inspiration, and he keeps giving this to society. He sees is to think. On the other hand, intellectual knowledge is a product of the intellect. True knowledge is creation. The difference between the creation and the product can be seen in this. The mode of sattva, goodness, binds by attachment to knowledge. It binds one with attachment to knowledge. This is the mode of sattva goodness, which also binds by attachment to knowledge. How does the mode of rajas, passion, bind a person? Is explained in the next verse. Verse 7. Is it